Let me say that our presenters include Katy, Eddy from the Legal Services of Hudson Valley. Katy, say hi so we can get you the speaker. Okay, and Bettye Malone from Family Service Society of Yonkers, which I just learned actually serves the entire county. I always thought it was Yonkers focused, so I am so excited that I've already learned something in this presentation. If time permits, I'll join at the end to sort of swoop up with a couple of resources that I believe are relevant to grandparents who are working with children during this whole COVID-19 odd school schedule time. But I really want to give the focus to Katy and Bettye for this presentation. So Katy, if you would, unmute yourself and please share your screen so we can see the PowerPoint deck.
Hi everyone, how are you doing today? So I will be talking about legal and education concerns for grandparents raising grandchildren, and then I will pass the mic over to Bettye to continue the presentation. So first, what is the Legal Services of the Hudson Valley Kinship Unit? We are a unit serving any kinship caregivers, and we provide a wide array of resources to do so. We can help with housing, domestic violence, family law, income and public benefits, consumer and finance, advanced planning, elder law, disability advocacy, HIV and AIDS, special education, veterans and military families, and more resources. I do want to point out that these are areas of service that we provide to everyone. Our kinship unit helps kinship caregivers with these services. So whether you are a kinship family or not and have legal issues, please do contact Legal Services of the Hudson Valley to see if we can assist you. So what is kinship? It's grandparents, siblings, or other family members or non-relative individuals. Essentially, a kinship caregiver is anyone taking care of children who are not biologically their own. Typically, these are grandparent situations, but kinship can mean a neighbor, it can mean a sibling, or it can mean another family member. And what occurs is usually it's a family member or a non-family member suddenly taking care of a child or children. So this can have major impacts on figuring out custody and guardianship, a kinship caregiver's financial situation, health concerns for both the kinship caregiver and ensuring that the children are taken care of, education concerns, housing, and more impacts. But these are just to list a few. So we can assist kinship caregivers to navigate legal systems to ensure they receive available benefits for their kin. New York State has a lot of benefits for kinship caregivers to provide for kin. Bettye Malone will talk more about what they do to provide these services. But we can also assist in this arena. So we do have a partnership with Bettye, as I've talked about multiple times already. We work together to provide legal education presentations to kinship caregivers. This allows kin caregivers to know their legal rights and to better be prepared to navigate the legal system. And we also work on a joint referral system. So we refer our clients to Family Services Society, and Family Services Society refers their clients to us. So one of the things that we often get referrals for is assistance navigating with family court, because a kin relationship, a kin caregiver relationship can be different depending on the needs of the child. So for instance, a kin may only be needed to take care of a child for a summer or for a year, or they may need permanent custody, or they may want to navigate guardianship options. There are 2 articles in the Family Court Act that provide for kin caregivers to get custody guardianship. The first is Article 6 and the second is Article 10. Article 6 is when individuals go to court to request custody or guardianship. And Article 10 is when CPS and DSS are involved in direct placement in kinship foster care. In Article 6, custody or guardianship options, there's less involvement with DSS and CPS, and clients often need help navigating not only family court, but how to apply for SNAP, HEAP, housing, SSI, temporary assistance, or other available assistance to kin caregivers. Under Article 10, direct placement or kinship foster care, CPS is involved, and there's more involvement, which can be difficult for families because, of course, they just want to, figure out and navigate the system and be set up. But there's a lot more assistance, especially financial assistance, if CPS is involved. So assisting clients with Article 6 or Article 10 is something we provide. And we work with DSS in both ways to make sure that kin caregivers receive as much assistance as possible. So one thing I want to touch on today is education for kinship caregivers. And the reason I want to do this is because oftentimes kin caregivers can be a generation removed from knowing the rights and opportunities for children at school because they are often grandparents raising grandchildren. And the success of a child's future is significantly based on education opportunities they receive. So it's important as people who provide assistance for us to remind kin caregivers of the importance of being involved in education. And how can caregivers get involved? Well, from figuring out enrollment and the correct school to enroll a child in, to immunization requirements and attendance, staying involved in their education, knowing what curriculum and what assignments are due to ensure that grades improve and the child's grades improve, and they receive achievement goals. They can read, write, math, pass all standardized tests. It's important for kin caregivers to stay involved in school-related activities, such as parent-teacher conferences, and advocating for kin, talking to teachers about options and after-school activities and the importance of homework completion. And of course, there is extra assistance with 504 plans, which is a reasonable accommodation, or an individualized education plan for special needs. And Bettye will touch on this more, but it's really important for kinship caregivers to stay involved with school so that if this extra assistance is needed, the child is receiving it. So what about COVID? We are, as everyone says, in unprecedented times. How school districts are responding to COVID is not uniform. All throughout Westchester, and I've done my research, they are, depending on the school system, they are deciding whether to go back full-time or part-time or stay remote. And depending on the resources available, students have varying abilities to receive remote learning and complete assigned activities. So it's really important now more than ever for kin caregivers to stay involved, have constant communication with teachers, and ensure that kin are receiving and completing assigned tasks. Because we do not want this population, these children being raised by grandparents and or others, to fall behind in their curriculum. So now more than ever, it's important for kin to stay involved. And if a child has an IEP, that's an individualized education plan, or a reasonable accommodation, often known as a 504 plan, it's important for kin caregivers to work with the school to ensure that the child's needs are being met. And if they are not being met, contact LSHV so that we can open a case and assist you. And again, Bettye can also assist, and she'll talk about how they assist with education. So external resources, and this is specific to the education part of this talk, but I put LSHV at the top because if you have any legal concerns, we do want you to contact us so that we can open a case for you. But in terms of navigating education, there's the New York State Department of Education, the New York State PTA, and that's the Parent Teacher Association, the Westchester Institute for Human Development, I'm sorry, forgot the development word right there, and Parent to Parent New York State. So here are some resources that you can go online and figure out how different schools, different systems are navigating COVID. And of course, Elena and Bettye will talk more. So I will stop sharing. Oh no, continue sharing and Bettye, go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Katy. It really is a pleasure to be here and have this opportunity to talk about our partnership, Yonkers, our Yonkers agency's partnership with your agency, and the kinds of things that we are doing to make hopefully life better for grandparents raising grandchildren. The Family Service Society of Yonkers has a number of programs that help people beyond kinship care. We have a guardianship program. We have a housing program. But I'm going to speak specifically about what we do in kinship. We do have, we provide services for families right now in all of Westchester, but beginning in September, we will also offer services in Rockland County. We can offer those services both in Spanish and English, and that's very important. We do have someone who can work with Spanish-speaking families who bring unique situations to grandparenting. So we're interested in working with families both in Westchester and Rockland County. Katy. So one of the things that we do that is very important to caregivers is to provide us support group opportunities. So many of our families come to us not knowing that there are a lot of people in their situation. In fact, they are oftentimes surprised when they find out they're not by themselves. I've actually had people come into support group meetings and they begin to share their stories and hear what other people have to say, and they actually start to cry. And they cry because they say, I thought it was just me. I didn't know that other people were having the same kind of experience. So the first thing is to let our grandparents know that they are not by themselves and that there's hope for them and their families, help for them and their families. Katy? We do provide community education using evidence-based programs. This is always a tricky thing with grandparents, and I can say I'm a grandparent who raised my grandson, and we think we know. And so we don't want anybody to tell us how to parent. We've done this before, but as Katy said earlier, we are a generation, and some of our grandparents are even 2 generations beyond their grandchildren. So parenting has taken on a different picture. And we need families to find an easier way of working with children. It certainly will be easier than perhaps the way they were actually raised. So one of the programs that we use is the parent training skills, which we don't call it that exactly because again, people don't like to think they need parent training, but we try to get them to look at what triggers a behavior, because the idea is changing the behavior, not changing the child per se. So we try to identify what triggers a behavior, and then what does the child get out of it? A child is not going to do something unless he's getting something out of it. So what is the child getting out of the behavior that he's exhibiting, and what is the parent getting out of it? And then we go back and look at a way to change that behavior, or to make it a far more reachable one for both the parent and the child. Katy? Schooling is very important. I don't think anybody would even question that. One of the things that grandparents hesitate to do is to go for school meetings. Not because they don't want to go. I always say because they're just simply too tired to go. I mean, if you can imagine a grandparent chasing around a 5-year-old and a teenager all the time, and then having to go into school and deal with the issues the child may be presenting in school, they're intimidated by it. Oftentimes they think that they will be blamed for it. And so they're always looking for someone to help to navigate that. So one of the things that we do in our agency is to participate in school meetings with the parents, often as an observer, and then sometimes if it's necessary to make comments or to ask questions, then we would do that. We try to help the grandparent understand the educational goals. The biggest thing is to help the grandparent to understand that nobody's out to get them, but we're focused on the child, and we want to make sure that the child is getting all the services he or she needs, and to address any social and emotional needs that the child and the family may have. We've been very fortunate. As I say, our agency offers a lot of programs, and we do have a reading buddy program. And this summer, well, not summer, it's during the COVID, it's during the pandemic, we have actually been able to provide tutoring to children in the Yonkers district. We did it over Zoom, And then during the summer, they participated in a Reading Buddies program. And that is something that we probably will be able to work with the Yonkers district to identify children who need this extra service and to work with them. Our tutors are volunteers, but they are very good at what they do. So that's just giving grandparents extra help. We also have a couple of after-school programs where we work with in one of the high schools and in one of the elementary schools so that parents have an extra place to go for after-school care. Now, this all depends, of course, after school on what happens with the school in general. And right now it looks like we will be going back to school. How that program will transpire, I'm not absolutely sure. But if we go back to, not at this juncture, but when you look at the screen there, you can look at names where you can email and find out more information on that. Katy? So we also offer a children's and teen program, and this is exciting. During the summer, and we've always done this, done it for a long time, let's put it that way. We have a teen program near the end of August, and this year we expanded that, and it was virtual, but the children really enjoyed it. They were able to go on virtual trips. They were able to do arts and crafts. We have a wonderful person working with those young people who helps them to develop character, helps them to become responsible. And this goes throughout our youth program. And in this time, it's been very important to zero in on what we can do for youth. We provide special events. There may be activities where the children can go to do some college tours, for instance. Children who are in high school are provided this opportunity so they can begin to start thinking, even in the middle school, of what they want to do, if that's the route they want to take. And all of this happens in our teen program. They're focused on developing relationships with each other, with their peers, with adults. And that is a tremendous challenge for our young people today, because it's hard enough to do it if you are face-to-face. It's even more difficult if you have to do it at a distance. So our teen program, which is chaired, I don't want to say chair, that may be the wrong word, but Kayla Urena, who is excellent. And if you have teens and grandparents who are interested in this, you really should be in touch with her, and she will follow up on that. Katy? And I have to say that I can't see the top of that screen. Hold on a second. Okay, so we also provide family activities. And again, those will be special outings for families where the children and the families go together. And even during COVID, or at the end of COVID, we were able to provide one activity, a group activity outside of Zoom, a real activity, so to speak. Our families went to the zoo. And it was a very calculated kind of trip, in the sense that we didn't have to use a bus. We provided individual transportation for each family who went. They went as family groups, and they stayed together as family groups under the supervision of our program coordinator. So we're always trying to find ways that families can get out and experience very positive activities with their children. We have holiday gifting, that is Thanksgiving dinners, holiday presents for the children, school clothing when it's available, school supplies. We also have a special Kinship month, and that is in September, and already we're working on what will happen during that month for our grandparents, and that is designed to just say thank you to them and to support them in what they're doing with their grandchildren. And you'll be hearing more about that, because there will be flyers going out about that. Katy? And then we have a very special group of grandparents who have, I don't want to say aged out of the program, but they're no longer raising grandchildren under 18 and under, but they still support the program. They like to look at things that would be good and make the program better. They advocate for kinship support. It's a wonderful group of women, and we have had a man in there from time to time. And I want to say that we do have grandfathers raising grandchildren too. So that generally is what that particular group does. Katy, I don't know if there's I think that's the end, right? So let me just say that if, if you're interested in having grandparents receive more benefits, please feel free to contact us at Family Service Society of Yonkers, and we will do whatever we can do to make life a little bit better for those grandparents who are raising grandchildren.
Wow, Bettye and Katy, thank you. Thank you so much for the information that you've just shared. I've got a bunch of questions to sort of put forth. I'm going to go back to Katy's. I think they may be more appropriately answered by Katy, but then Bettye, you're going to give me a wonderful segue into some educational resources. So thank you. One of the questions is about the courts. So you talked about your assistance and helping grandparents navigate those different. What's the term for it? The different laws that will establish guardianship. So how are the courts right now? Are they slowing down? Are they meeting virtually?
So they are currently meeting virtually. However, courts are beginning to transition to in-person. We do have some concerns about the safety of this transition. We do know of several trials that are currently scheduled to be in person. And so we're paying a lot of attention to how these go. I myself, anyone I work with, I'm requesting virtual court at the moment until everything becomes safer. And so that's
Is it easier or harder to get things scheduled? Like, is this causing a slowdown?
It's causing a huge slowdown. For instance, I filed for custody, a petition for custody last week, and our court date's not till October. So it's a big slowdown, especially for families who need to figure this out, get custody, get legal paperwork sooner rather than later. But everybody's in this boat.
That was actually a question I was holding. So how, let's say, some tragedy or challenge occurs and a grandparent needs to step in. What's the time frame? Like how challenging is it to get that guardianship established, and is that essential for moving forward with the school?
So it depends. So depending on the relationship between the parent and the grandparent, there is a piece of paper that the parent can fill out called a parental designation form, which allows for minor health and all school activities that schools in the state of New York do need to recognize and allow for enrollment. However, if that's not the case, you do need to go and file for custody. And in that case, what we would do is file something called an order to show cause, which says, "Hi, court, we need immediate help on this." So depending on the situation, it can take a little while or it can take a long time. And by a long time, I can't really give a time frame right now because of what's going on and how crazy this pandemic is and the impact it's had on the court system. Because family court deals with a lot, including domestic violence or other family issues. And so everyone needs help, and that's why the court's backed up.
Wow. When I think about going to family court, do they keep sort of the issues separate? If I'm a grandparent seeking guardianship versus someone who's dealing with a domestic violence case, it seems like virtual would at least keep the focus on that subject.
Well, anytime you go to court, they're only going to hear your case and call you in, so it's just you. So you would never,
just curious how that actually works. We have one question from someone who says, "I'm a grandparent who works occasionally during school hours." So that's a challenge, right? How young can a child stay at home alone?
I'd have to look that up. Bettye, do you know that answer?
I'm going to say 15. That may be wrong. But there is, I think it'd be better to look it up.
I'll tell that to my mother.
I know they can't stay there if I don't think 12 and under.
12, they cannot if they're 12 and under. And I know many of the libraries have a policy about the age at which a child can be left alone in a library.
Right.
So that's also, there's some I'm not sure where that age gets established. So that would be one to get an answer to. Well, I'm happy to post it if we can get that one nailed down. So another question is, and I think you're both sort of maybe can address this, but particularly you, Bettye, what kind of occasional caregiving resources are available that are, I don't know, I mean, there's childcare providers who, I think some after school programs have, occasional caregiving when there's school and there's an after school. Right now, we don't know when this is. There's babysitters. Are there other programs that you specifically have for grandparents and through the kinship support services that are available?
This is a major problem for grandparents. Grandparents have to be working in order to get child care. If they're not working, then they're not eligible for the subsidy, and that makes it very difficult. If they're working, they can apply for child care subsidy. But children still need the after-school care. They need it, and the grandparents need the respite. So that's one of the things that we've been kind of talking about, how to make some of that happen. But as far as I can recall, there are no services for grandparents who are not working.
How do they get out to medical appointments sometimes? And
that's the problem.
That's the juggle.
That's it.
It really speaks to having a community and a network that you can turn to in a pinch.
Yeah.
But
and then most of the times they're not permitted to have the parent take care of the children, babysit them for a moment or so because of circumstances.
Wow. A challenge on top of a challenge. I'm going to back up to Katy. Can you go over again Article 6 and 10? I think that was sort of where my question was before too.
Okay, yeah, they're just two articles of the Family Court Act. One allows an individual to go to court and request custody, and the other is done through CPS and DSS, where they will go to court and request custody on your behalf, depending on the situation. So Article 10 is related to abuse and neglect, and when the state needs to get involved and take the child out of the home. And Article 6 is for every other circumstance, such as a parent being unavailable for a certain reason, and a grandparent needing to go get custody.
That's clarifying. Thank you. And the question, if you have any follow-up, let us know. Another question, and it goes to, I think, a lot of the Family Service Society of Yonkers services. When do the support groups meet? Those sound like a powerful resource.
They are.
We have one on Friday, as a matter of fact, the 28th, but it's virtual. Anybody interested, though, can email me at bmalone@fisi.org, and I will give them the link to coming so that they can come to that meeting. In general, we have been meeting every other week, every second and fourth Friday. In September, we will meet once a month as a support group, and then we will also provide training once a month to kind of make up not doing the two support group meetings. And
is there childcare available during these?
Virtually, yes.
Virtual meetings, right?
Yeah. No, we have not. We've been meeting before the pandemic. We were meeting in the library. And so what was happening is the families were bringing their children to the library with them. And they were old enough that they could either work on the computers or do something when school was out. But our meetings are generally at 10 o'clock in the morning. So children are in school.
Okay. And the Yonkers School District, just thinking of where you were at the Yonkers Riverfront Library, that's planning on reopening?
Right now, we don't have permission to meet
As of today and this time, it's hard to...
We're keeping our fingers crossed, but right now we don't have any approval for that.
Okay. So this is, I can't imagine the challenge on top of challenges between, you talked about 2 generations removed from the current school processes, let alone 1 generation, let alone, I mean, my own challenges as a parent trying to understand how things were taught, versus how I was taught, and then how to teach my children. Yeah. That just compounds it. One of the things I'm also always concerned about is digital literacy on top of this. So right now, between Zooming and all of the wonderful online tools that we can all point to, if you're not someone who's comfortable accessing them, you have the challenge of making sure that your child is safe and using them effectively. So that's something that I hope everyone realizes you can go to libraries for some assistance on, and I'll sort of talk a bit more about that. The tutoring services that you offer are wonderful. Are you looking for more tutors? Is it still something that's available? Is it virtual or online?
Right now it would be virtual.
Right.
I don't know how that's going to pan out long, again, with what happens with the school and everything. But it is something that for right now is virtual. But
Was it coordinated by the school or by Family Service Society?
It's coordinated by Family Service Society of Yonkers.
Right.
In conjunction with the school. They work very closely with the school in providing the services. So this time it will be identifying children who really need that service. What we did during the pandemic was to work with any child who applied. And the children were given the laptops and what have you from the school and other places where we could get them from. And they were worked with that way. I'm not absolutely sure as to what the process will be. I just know that it will happen.
All right. So keep me posted, because that's certainly something I'd like to help support. I know I have a lot of my member libraries are trying to figure out how to address homework help and after school, tutoring supports that are there. So I think each school district is different, so they're trying to customize whatever their response is to that.
Well, that's very good to know, and you will be hearing from us.
So, but one of the core things that I would like to take a chance to show, and I'll look again if there's any other questions on the Q&A that I should, okay, so I think I've covered those. Let me just take a few minutes to sort of share what we may have that further supports the effort to keep kids going forward. And also some additional resources that touch on some of what you had. I'll share my screen, and I'm going to share my Google Chrome browser. There we go. So you guys should see, actually, let me show you this website. So there are two things I want you to know. The libraries are there for you. And particularly, I want to say that the outreach department of Westchester Library System is trying its darndest to queue up a lot of resources in an easy to access fashion, and we'll answer your questions about how to apply these resources, how you can navigate them effectively. So firstfind.org is one of the websites that the Westchester Library System owns, and it is a very task-oriented site. So this is one of the tasks we have right now is learning. And look, if you click on learning games for all ages, you're going to pop into a product that's called Learning Upgrade. And I'm going to actually go ahead and show you what this looks like. It's very noisy.
Welcome to Learning Upgrade.
So I'm sure you can hear
that.
Do
you want to learn English reading or math first?
Now you'll notice that it has English, math, and digital literacy. This is an application that runs on computers, on mobile, on a Chromebook, on a phone, on a tablet, and it's a lot of music and graphics, and it's short little lessons. Okay, and we'll come back to the short little lessons part. I'm going to go ahead and log myself in, because there's a lot of music.
Select your course to get started.
If I go ahead and take a placement test or start myself off someplace, it's going to show me for every level. So this goes from kindergarten all the way through high school level reading and math. So think about that. This actually is a tool used by people who have never even learned the English language to learn the language, understand core reading concepts and math concepts. And every level has about 60 lessons in it that are, I know this one, it's going to add the course, that are...
Select the...
We'll start
here.
Here
Is a passage. A passage is a group of sentences for you to read. To help you understand a passage, ask yourself 5 questions.
Guess what
Here's
those
what
are.
they are. When you read a passage, you need to understand.
I'm not going to take the time for that one, but you get the idea. Okay, so there's a lot of music and a structure to this that it turns out is successful. The company that made this won something called the X Prize in adult learning. So it's used for adults, but it was developed working with the New York City school system. So it's something that you all have access to. And if you go to First Find and you click on the learning games for all ages, you'll see a whole description of this, and it explains how you actually access this tool. Of course, if there's any question about this, you see this lovely colorful button over here that says questions, ask us. It pops open a simple form, and you can shoot us an email, send me tell me you'd rather be answered by phone, and we will connect with you. You do not need a library card to use this. What you need to do is to use the code that's here when you actually create an account. So I wanted to point out Learning Upgrade. There's two resources I want everyone to know about. So in addition to Learning Upgrade, there's another thing that you'll see everywhere on this website, and it's called tutor.com. Tutor.com, you actually access it, tutor.com/Westchester, is exactly that. You can get live tutoring, and right now it runs from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. for questions that go from elementary grades all the way through grad school. So think about that. I'm stuck understanding how to explain this geometry question to my kid, to my grandkid. I can go on here and get live chat help. It can also be video chat. We'll have a little whiteboard between 9 a.m. and 10 p.m. I'm in high school and I have no idea how to help my grandchild deal with pre-algebra questions, or how to effectively help them to edit an essay so that they would understand how to do it better in the future. When you click through to this, it is going to ask you for a library card. We can talk about that. And once I go through, when it takes my library card, you have to do a couple of choices. Indicate what it is you're working on, selecting a subject, telling them what grade you're in. You can also upload something, so you can upload your essay, your college application, and have somebody outside your family read it. All of that is ridiculously powerful. And my favorite thing actually is that it's also available in English and Spanish. So I can click on here and it toggles over. And I think you may have seen that when I'm going to back up to Windows.
Yeah.
When I was on the screen, it showed you that how to get directly to the Spanish content. So again, firstfind.org is the third thing I want you to know about. It has information on how to get your diploma, how to go to college. So we're talking about, like Bettye, grandparents now helping people navigate that whole college application process when they may not have done it themselves, or it's been a while. We have a lot of good resources. We have some great job search resources, including for young adults. And my favorite right now is that we have developed a whole lot of early literacy information. So if you want to assist your child, before, let's say you have a very young one there, we have a brochure that explains a lot of early literacy tips, a songbook, in case you forgot Itsy Bitsy Spider. And we have videos from a wonderful bilingual librarian who has explained how to actually hold a book, get your child to engage with the book. She models it, so you feel no embarrassment about going forward and doing finger plays and everything else. And also how to use some of our key library resources for the youngest children. So I'm going to stop sharing right now. So those are three things. So firstfind.org is the website to go to. Tutor.com can really bail all of us out, whether we're in school or not, actually, because we're still all trying to learn. And Learning Upgrade is something that can work for every age group. So even I challenge you to go make an account and see how much math you've forgotten. It's humbling. But it's this is just the tip of the iceberg. So I want you to know that as you're all navigating these different educational challenges in the educational system, the actual learning has so much support from the wonderful tutoring that Family Service Society of Yonkers offers, just actually some tutoring that the Westchester Library System offers, homework help in your local libraries, and all of these very robust online resources. So that's kind of like the swooping up at the end to sort of say there is help. We also are linking to special education supports and other things, but I think Legal Services of Hudson Valley is the first place I would go. All righty. So Bruce, do you have any other questions coming in?
I don't see anything, but let's just give folks a moment to do that if people have other questions. And in the meantime, I'm just going to take a minute to thank our sponsors. So we have a wonderful group of sponsors here that on the screen, and they helped us this year, like a lot of nonprofit initiatives. It was really quite something, to move from, the in-person programs to the online programs, and we couldn't have done it without these sponsors here listed on this page, so thank you. So Elena, I don't see any other Q&As that have come in, do you?
Actually, I just now, hang on.
Oh yeah, right, someone just came in, okay, good.
Make sure I got that screen. Are these sites available for caregivers statewide or only in Westchester County? So, Legal Services of Hudson Valley, your purview is Hudson Valley, so that means that anyone can call from where?
We are in, I believe, 7 different counties. We go all the way up to Ulster, and you just need to look online to see if we're available. And if we're not, there are other legal services programs above us and below us, but we're the only legal services program that provides legal services to the Hudson Valley.
And Bettye, Family Services of Society of Yonkers?
Yeah, I would like to, well, as I said, we cover all of Westchester, and starting in September, we will be Rockland County too. But I would encourage people to look at the Kinship Navigator, New York State Kinship Navigator, and it will identify places in other states where they could receive kinship care services.
I have to say, in addition to posting this webinar and your PowerPoint presentations, I'm also going to make sure First Find now includes all of these wonderful links for kinship support. So we make sure we get people coming and going. And the websites that I was just pointing to, tutor.com is available to Westchester Library System cardholders. So that one is more specific, but the bulk of the content that is on First Find does not require a library card to access. So go at it. Be safe, be well. Seniorlawday.info. Don't forget.